Okay, y'all, I'm going to try to power through this second video in one take so I can get it out to you guys quickly. This video provides a higher vision for our potential and for the potential we can have if we become better learners together. If we can challenge our mindsets about ourselves and life, we can establish a foundation for addressing the aspirations, concerns, and issues we're working on. If we become better learners, our lives really do have the potential to be so much better. I believe a part of us already knows that. But so much of our experience makes that potential feel like a fairy tale, so we stop believing it's even worth working toward it. In this video, we'll start by discussing why we are the way we are and why it's hard to believe that we could be better. If we can understand why we are the way we are, perhaps we can see how we can learn to grow past our issues and get a glimpse of how much better our lives can actually be. See, learn. I think the biggest question we're addressing in these videos is, what does it mean to get the most out of our life individually and collectively? And how do we do it? This is a complex question by itself, let alone among the confusing array of answers people try to get us to believe. What is life supposed to be like? What is the purpose of life? What is our own value? We don't know the right answers to these questions, but we should definitely be constantly rethinking the answers we do have, because literally everything we do in our lives and everything we're concerned about is based on what we believe the answers are. Let's start by considering basic assumptions. First, let's assume that we're all fundamentally good, that we all matter, and that we have the potential to be amazing. Let's also assume that our lives are supposed to be phenomenal and even magical and epic, and that we're supposed to naturally love life. When we think about our actual experience of life, these notions can seem a little far-fetched. If we're fundamentally good, why is the world so bad? But perhaps a more accurate perspective could show us how these notions are actually true, even though they seem not to be. It's easy for us to ask the question, if we're really fundamentally good, why is the world so bad? As we look around us at how things are going, and even as we work to navigate our own lives, it's sometimes easy to believe that the situation is hopeless, and so we settle for the way things are because change seems unrealistic. But is it really okay to settle? Is okay really enough? Is change worth the effort? What if we're just looking at it the wrong way? Perhaps a better understanding would lead us to workable solutions. What if the problems facing humanity all stem from the fact that being human is hard? What if, despite our best efforts, we're just not very good at handling life's inherent challenges? Everything we think we're doing to solve life's challenges actually makes things worse. We've been building up these issues for countless generations, and since we're also not good at working together, these issues just keep piling up and even become embedded in our cultures, institutions, and belief systems. We're struggling to get our needs met against the inherent challenges of life while carrying the weight from all of humanity. It's a wonder we can even operate at all. Our lives could be so much better if we just learned how. Let's break that down. Being human is hard. We each have infinite needs that life compels us to satisfy just to survive. Our needs and wants are present in and define every part and moment of our lives. We must constantly make choices every moment of every day, and we must comply with life's rules, or we suffer the consequences whenever we fall short. Our survival depends on how accurately we perceive and understand, but our capabilities of perception and understanding are drastically limited and easily fooled. We'll never really understand those rules of life that we're supposed to comply with. And no matter how hard we try or how well we do, we can never escape challenge, hardship, and pain. Increasing challenge seems to be an integral part of the nature of life. On top of our own personal challenges, Life's design has us interdependent on each other to get our needs met. We cannot meet our needs by ourselves. And those human relationships we're dependent on are ridiculously complex to navigate, which amplifies life's other challenges. And despite our interdependence on others, we still ultimately face life alone and bear the responsibility for our choices. Life is an impossible calling, a call to perfection that we cannot achieve. We aren't very good at handling this impossible calling, which leaves us mired in our unresolved issues, which we're also not good at handling. Everyone around us in this struggle, not to mention the countless generations that have been struggling before us. These issues don't only hinder us, but they compound on each other like interest on a debt. Consider all of those issues we've inherited from our parents that they inherited from theirs. We struggle with those issues in addition to our own past challenges, which blocks our ability to handle challenges in the present, and when we hand those compounded, unresolved issues to others around us. Moreover, as we deal with those issues collectively, such as societally, which we're also not good at, we embed these issues into our cultures, institutions, and belief systems, and build in elaborate systems of enforcement. We tell each other what we're supposed to believe, what we're supposed to want and value, how we're supposed to act, and even how we're supposed to feel, and we punish people who step out of line. We internalize all of these issues until we lose touch with what we really believe, want, or feel. We try to fix the situation, and we just make things worse, because our strategies are far too simplistic and actually work against us. We try to decide what the truth is, and then enforce that truth on ourselves and others. We avoid or conceal anything that isn't consistent with that decided truth. We make assumptions about how life should work, deliberately ignoring how life does work, then use those values to tell ourselves and each other how we should think, feel, or act. We label, separate, and judge ourselves and others, defining what is or isn't normal or appropriate, creating superhuman standards and a foundation for inhibitions, repression, guilt, and shame. And we control, manipulate, coerce, and persecute, usually feeling completely justified because of the other strategies mentioned above. Even our own profession feels justified in inflicting change on others, and sometimes our approaches border on manipulation. We're all carrying around so much weight that we've lost any connection to who we actually are, and all we know of ourselves and each other are the pretenses and defense mechanisms we wear around just to survive the day. These are the difficult people we see in our companies, in traffic, on the news, and social media, and even in our families. And it's easy to think that we're flawed and even evil. We forget that we're all doing the best we can. Sound familiar? We could think of plenty of examples of people who have been this way to us, and there are certainly examples of people in history or in current events that act as if they're difficult, flawed, or evil, and we can probably think of many instances when perhaps we ourselves have been this way. But what if we're all just doing the best we can within a human experience that's inherently harder than we can handle? What if we're actually fundamentally good, and we all just need to learn to handle life better? Our lives could be so much better if we just learned how. For example, even though we constantly fall short despite our best efforts, I think we all have a sense that we're all fundamentally good. If we learn to address our issues and more effectively navigate life's challenges, we can learn to connect to that goodness. We also have a sense that we have the potential to be amazing, even though thinking about our potential can sometimes conjure feelings of doubt and pain. We see potential in others that they cannot see, and they see it in us. We can see areas where we know we can improve if we just knew how, and we can look back on our lives and see areas where we've grown far more than we would have believed possible. If we can learn to see the potential in ourselves and others in our lives, we go a long way toward achieving it. In our struggles, in our struggles with the challenge of being human, we might also lose touch with our own intrinsic value, our sense of how much we all matter. If you think about it, there's no reason to believe that anybody matters more than you or that you matter more than anybody else. While life may seem as if we need to choose who matters more, if we become better learners, we find solutions that allow us all to matter. Hopefully, you're starting to see that if we become better at learning, there is hope that humanity can be better. Let's look a little deeper at the cognitive cycle underlying how we handle the experiences we're confronted with as humans. Hopefully, understanding the components of this cognitive cycle will give us a deeper understanding of why we are the way we are and what we would need to change. So, we've established that being human is hard and that we aren't very good at handling it, which leaves us carrying around the weight of generations of issues, our individual issues, and issues embedded in our societies and cultures. Because being human is hard, we're confronted with our experience of life that we must respond to. As you'll see, the reality that we think we're experiencing is really just our perceptions and interpretations. What we're calling handling our experiences involves what we do individually and collectively to make sense of that experience and then respond to it. We handle our experience on 4 levels: emotional, operational, constructional, and systemic. We'll go into each of these levels in a moment. First, it's worth reiterating that how we handle things collectively, such as how we handle things as groups, organizations, and societies, is all a product of how we're handling things individually. We sometimes act as if there's some central processor and hard drive, some collective unimind that acts outside of our individual minds, but there is no unimind. To be sure, there are certainly group dynamics where we handle things certain ways because of the people around us, which we'll cover shortly. But all of this happens within our individual minds. And even the seemingly more tangible things on our systemic level are still only meaningful based on our perceptions and interpretations of them. That means that any change must happen within the minds of each individual involved. Let's take a look at each of the 4 levels. We'll start with the systemic level, because this is probably the level we're most familiar with. This level is the settings, relationships, structure, and resources that comprise the context we experience things within. As individuals, we experience this level as our environment. It's the level we experience as being most tangible, and probably the level that we'd consider to be reality. It's probably the level we feel we have the most control over, but remember that what we experience as reality is really just our perceptions and interpretations. It's only meaningful because we interpret it as meaningful. Also, much of what we experience as our environment comes from the collective level, because most of our individual environment is formed by our interaction with others. The more supportive our environment is, the healthier we'll be in it. Collectively, we handle the systemic level as institutions, where we attempt to make our collective beliefs and dynamics more tangible. The constructional level consists of the concepts, models, and beliefs we created or inherited from others about our experience of life. Individually, we call these concepts, models, and beliefs mindsets. We can think of these mindsets like data stored on a hard drive or in RAM. We access this data constantly as we're working through our experience. The more accurate our mindsets are, the more effective we'll be. Collectively, we experience these concepts, models, and beliefs within our cultures and narratives. Remember, there is no collective hard drive. The culture and narratives are all around us and have been passed down and compounded through countless generations. The operational level is how we actively process our experience. Individually, we refer to this level as thought processes, and we might also refer to it as our train of thought or our self talk. It consists of things like perception, attention, awareness, recognition, interpretation, inference, prediction, reasoning, and problem solving. The more effectively we process our experience, the healthier we'll be. For example, our responses to life are much healthier the more effectively we perceive or interpret our experience. Collectively, we experience this level as social dynamics. For example, think about social power and how it influences the way we think about things collectively. It's worth mentioning here that these levels are not always distinct. They tend to blend together. For example, we use thought processes to create mindsets, and our thought processes then refer frequently to mindsets as we process. Our culture and narratives can be embedded in institutions and can reinforce social dynamics, which in turn enforce the cultural narratives. It isn't so important that we correctly classify our experience into these different levels, but that we know that these levels are happening so that they interact with each other. The fourth level is the emotional level. This is the deepest and most complex level, and we know so little about it that we tend to dismiss it as unimportant. But what if it was the most important level? Individually, we call this level feelings. Collectively, we experience this level as our cultural identity. Like thought processes, feelings give us a sense for how we are within our experience. But unlike thought processes, feelings are much harder to define or articulate, which is why we would rather not deal with them. In fact, think about how much of our mindsets, narratives, institutions, etc., are built to help us dismiss and avoid our feelings. What if what we experience as a feeling is actually a sense of something much deeper, or a sense of who we are? We sometimes experience it as a spiritual connection. Our feelings show us what we want and need, what is valuable to us, what we're passionate about. It's where we find our natural feelings of enthusiasm for life and empathy with others. To be sure, we've covered up our feelings so much with our mindsets, narratives, institutions, etc., that we've lost our sense of what our feelings actually are. We tell ourselves and each other what we're meant to feel and value and believe. To be healthier on this level, we need to be more connected to our emotions. In fact, our connection to our emotions is really the only sense we have about what healthy actually is. We should also note that we're not usually very aware of what's happening on these levels. We might think we're conscious of what's going on in our minds, but in reality, so much more is going on subconsciously that we're not aware of. Think, for example, about how quickly we react or jump to conclusions without giving any thought to why we reacted that way or arrived at that conclusion. Collectively, though we pretend that everything is explicit and out in the open, we know that most of what happens in our interactions and relationships goes on tacitly. Think about those unspoken rules we feel compelled to follow even though no one speaks about them. When we look at these levels together, we start to see how complex our cognitive experience is and why our simplistic solutions to change only make things worse. If we want real, sustainable change that's healthy for each of us and for all of us, we need a sophisticated solution that takes all these levels into account. Learning is the only solution with the sophistication to handle life's complexities. Are you starting to see how much learning can help us all to do better at handling life, both individually and collectively? If we do it right, there may be hope for our own lives and for humanity to be so much better. One key leverage point can be learning more accurate mindsets. Our inaccurate mindsets seem to hinder so much of what happens on the other levels, and mindsets are really the only components that we can share with others. We should pay special attention to meta mindsets, which are our mindsets about how this cognitive experience works, such as our mindsets about mindsets themselves. The more accurately we understand how our cognitive experience works, the better we'll be able to handle our experience both on the individual and collective levels. For example, We probably have many mindsets about the nature of life and what it's supposed to be like, especially given how challenging it is and how ineffectively we typically handle it. But what if life is actually supposed to be phenomenal? What if we're actually meant to naturally love it, to thrive, not just survive? That's not to say that life is meant to be without struggle. Struggle is an intrinsic part of life and even part of life's value. But life should feel worth the challenge. So if we're doubting life's worth, something in our life needs to change. Perhaps the most important aspect of healthy change is connection with our feelings. Our feelings are the only true sense we have of who we are and what our needs are. It's the only real sense of what's actually healthy. If we're stuck wondering if life is worth living, then something's wrong. We need to understand why. It may mean that we're prioritizing the wrong things or that we're putting in too much of the wrong effort. For example, our true feelings often get blocked by inaccurate mindsets, such as our beliefs about what we're supposed to feel or value. There are also plenty of cultural beliefs and social dynamics that try to dictate our feelings. These inaccurate mindsets, beliefs, and dynamics block our sense of value in life and convince us that other things are more important than our own love of life. Connecting with our own true feelings brings us all closer to what's genuinely valuable for us, even to our sense of who we are. Learning to connect with our own true feelings connects us with life's intrinsic value. This value is appreciable and mutual, and it's unique to each of us. No one has to tell us the value of life. We love it because we love it. Our connection to the value of life is our most important aspect of our lives. It gives us the curiosity and creativity and the ability to dream, to make magic. It gives us the energy to grow and make things better, to move past survival into thriving. As mentioned before, learning is also the key for making big differences in the world around us. Learning starts the virtuous cycle by helping us change ourselves, making us more effective in helping others to change, which in turn helps us to change. Let's look at this virtuous cycle in more detail. As we become better learners, we become healthier individuals, meaning we have more accurate mindsets and more effective thought processes. We also have a stronger connection to our emotions, giving us more energy, strength, and faith, and a better sense of our self-worth. Becoming better individuals will lead us to better responses, making our experience of life better. Moreover, will increase our collective health, thus changing the world by changing ourselves. And changing the collective will make our individual environments healthier, which will allow us to grow even more, changing ourselves by changing the world. If we embrace learning, it will help us work together to rethink major questions such as who we are, what we think we know, what life is like, what's healthy and mature for each of us and for all of us, how we interact and relate, and the purpose of life. Rather than being stuck in the problems that seem unsolvable, we would transcend those problems, bringing in an age of humanity that allows us to be the best versions of who we are and get the most out of life individually and collectively. So hopefully, now you're more connected to what it means to get the most out of life. Hopefully, we have dispelled some of the reasons you might have doubted how great we could be. Hopefully, you're now connected to our sense that we are fundamentally good, that we all matter, and that we all have potential to be amazing. Our lives are supposed to be phenomenal, and we're supposed to naturally love life. Learning is the magic solution that will help us realize our potential. If you join us on the journey, we can make big differences together.